Hi, my name is Brian Michael Bendis, and you are listening to Dom of X.
All right, hello everybody. How is it going? I am Dom of X, comicreleases.com assistant editor, and today I am joined by a very special guest, somebody who I personally look up to. Torso, Masterpiece, Joy Operations, Powers, Daredevil, Ultimate Spider-Man, New Avengers, you name it all, Superman, Action Comics, all the Wonder Comics, Young Justice. I am talking to none other than the creator of Miles Morales and Jessica Jones, Brian Michael Bendis. How are you doing today, sir?
Very good, and I appreciate that great introduction. I do like to say co-creator whenever I can because Miles was co-created by Sarah Pacelli
Mhm.
and Jessica Jones co-created by the amazing Michael
Michael Gates.
Gaydos. I just like, collaboration is such a big part of like the reason we do any of this. I just like to celebrate it any chance we can.
I bet because I find comics just overall to be sort of this, fluid and masterpiece of a combination in terms of scripting and dialogue on top of all the amazing art that we get. Like every single time I'm looking at a page, it's like how many people put all of their efforts into it, not just obviously the artist but also the colorists of a lot of who you've been part of, like Marta Garcia and like All New X-Men, Matt Hollingsworth on Daredevil, and of course the letterers, and it's a huge list.
And the legendary Justin Ponsner, who is no longer with
Hmm.
us, who colored an enormous amount of my Marvel work. Yeah.
So yeah, obviously.
Well, what you're saying is really something that's been said behind the scenes. I remember being at Marvel and the publisher was kind of marveling at what a unique business this is, where you get like these handcrafted stories. Like these are like every issue is like hand drawn by someone who's studied their whole life just to draw this for you. And all these people are really like experts in their field and you get to have it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of amazing.
It,
So,
It is, and I think just overall in my life to have been not only able to read your work, but so many other people's work where it's like all of these amazing talents putting all of their efforts in on even just one single page or one single panel, where I'm like, how many hours did it take to think about this panel or the story behind it or everything else that you can get from it? I mean, it's just wonderful to be able to experience that and also get to talk to you about all this.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's awesome.
So, if I may, I would like to talk about your indie work, first of all, because you are, of course, the creator of so many amazing titles with Alex Maleev and David Mack, Michael Gaydos, and it's like Michael Avon Oeming. I know
Mhm.
a lot who you consider close friends still and whatnot, right?
Oh yeah, no. A lot some of these people are the closest relationships in my life. Some of them are just excellent, fun business partners. But I appreciate this little slideshow we're getting, but I might have to buy it from you. But yeah, it's interesting. I had the opportunity to go back and revisit Jinx and Goldfish. Recently, I had a situation in Amazon where we were adapting a handful of stuff. Nothing's going to come of that situation, but they asked me to adapt Jinx, so I spent like the last year like revisiting all of those choices and kind of like refashioning like how I would tell that story today. So I've had a real journey with it. I'm really glad these books exist, even though they were so hard to put out. But it's and I just love having them out there.
No, and you've been to so many different publishers too, right? You're sort of your own. You've got Marvel publishing some of them in bits and pieces, and then move over to DC, Image, and of course Dark Horse now, which you consider your home. How's it like been just moving around to like all of these companies, like sort of up in flux, but also I guess just like trying to get all that stuff continued out in print so people can read all of your work that you do that you own.
Well, so I came into comics doing creator-owned stuff. All me and all my friends. You come in and you're doing like lower, independent, lower profile kind of situation, but you're just happy to be published and you're figuring your stuff out. And then when I got to Marvel and things started working out, um, they kind of offered me a space to continue doing my creator owned stuff over there. And one of the best parts of being creator owned, truly creator owned, is you can take it with you and keep moving. And I try to like instill that feeling in some of the younger creators out there. Like there's some people that say something's creator owned, but you find out no, the publisher owns it. You just have a piece of it, and that's fine. That's a different deal. But for me, truly creator owned means you can take it and go with you.
Mhm.
And so I was at Marvel for many years, and I was so honored that they created a unique space. They don't do a lot of creator-owned stuff, and that opened the door for some other people to get their stuff published as well. And then when we left Marvel, the plan was to basically do what we're doing right now, which is set up something, probably a Dark Horse. I had a pre-existing relationship with them. They had made it very clear that their store was open, and then DC swooped in and literally made an offer I couldn't refuse, and including setting up a place there. So the intention wasn't to move this stuff around like that, but it's a blessing that I can. And again, it's been over the course of many decades, so it's not like every couple of years I hop, but I do hope that Dark Horses are our forever destination. I'm really, really happy with our partnership with them. They've been just excellent. It was everything I hoped it would be. It's really, really wonderful. And as I often find myself, but at Dark Horse right now, I am surrounded by outstanding new titles and classic titles, and it's just an honor to be published alongside them. You know,
That,
Uh, Dark Horse just put out Mike Mignola's new book, Bowling with
mhm.
Corpses. It's one of the best books I've ever read. I loved it entirely. So yeah.
That's really cool to hear because I think over the last 3 or 4 years or so, we've had a really big resurgence in terms of creator owned titles. Like I'm thinking over at Image now, like how many imprints are
Mhm.
fully owned by you got Kyle Higgins doing the Massiverse stuff, you got Rick Remender and his own entire Giant Generator line, and Jeff Johns with Ghost Machine. And I'm really happy that you're still doing all the stuff that you love with all the people that who are close to you, being able to say like this is really cool, like we get to create our own projects, it's all our own, and we get to publish these things out that you can say like I own Jinx, or I can do whatever with Michael Avon Oeming on Powers and publish that. So cool, it really
Yeah,
is.
thank you. And also when you find collaborations like I have with Oeming or David Mack, um, you realize how important they are. Like any relationship in your life, and you realize how important their relationship is, you just do everything you can to cultivate it and to celebrate it. And for creative people, sometimes, a lot of times, that means like really challenging to see like how good this can get, and like how far can we push each other in a celebratory way. I don't mean like but like you'll often hear, I'll use the music version, and I'm sincerely not comparing myself to these people, but there's the story of John Lennon and Paul McCartney, both wonderful genius creators on their own. But then there's Lennon and McCartney, this thing that only exists with the two of them together in a room. And comics are filled with things like this, where obviously Stanley was brilliant and obviously Jack Kirby was, but you put them together and that no one could touch that. That was, even they couldn't reach it without each other. And then when you find that in your life, which I do have with Mike and Alex and Mike Oeming and Gaydos, and quite a few people, you're like, oh, I'm in this special space I can't get to on my own, and it's just the most wonderful feeling. And then on top of that, I've been at this enough where I was able to. I remember I had a birthday a few birthdays ago, and I really did almost cartoonishly take a look back and like take stock of what choices I've made
Mm-hmm.
and what I was proud of and what I wished I'd done more of. And it was really at that time I was so happy I got to write almost every single superhero, but I was really, really proud of all the like new stuff I'd put into the world, either the creator owned stuff or the new stuff I brought to Marvel or DC. I was really proud of the original stuff. So I said, well, why don't I make that the goal now is to do more original stuff or like really aim, like really try to reach for new ideas. And that's what I've been doing the last few years. And I've just been really grateful for people being so supportive of it. And on top of everything, it's been kind of amazing how much the industry has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly for the better. I know we're going to have a rough patch right now with what's going on with timing,
Right.
but there is, which I'm super frustrated by. But what has happened is that the industry and the graphic novel publishing space has evolved into this beautiful space that did not exist when I first broke into comics. It wasn't something I could even have dreamed of being part of because it did not exist. And then because of Miles, I often found myself in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was kind of like accidentally a YA author, and then all of a sudden I can go do some of that. And me and Andre Lima have a book called Phenomena that we put out in that space, and I have a new book coming out with David Marquez that will be in that space. And it's really, really amazing to be pushing so hard to try new things while the industry is kind of creating spaces specifically for those things. And at the moment, Hollywood is very IP heavy, which means stuff they know, like, the stuff they've already been successful with. And that comes in waves, but right now it does seem that Hollywood is very much like things we've already seen, and comics is like, show us something new. And I think a lot about that audience, our Wednesday Warriors and our weekend readers, and how there's so many stories out there in the world right now. Like there's so many, like you can pretty much get your hands on anything you want.
Right.
And comic book readers are eagerly coming in here going, show me something new, show me something else. Like that's our job. Like and I love that. I love that like unspoken thing that we're doing now, which is like all these creators that you listed, plus so many more, and plus so many new people, and so many people on the web comic platforms throwing their personal stories, their new stories, genre busting stories, all into space at the same time, and the audience is eating it up while Hollywood is, trying to remake Little House on the Prairie.
Right. No, it's so I find this whole entire industry so unique, and the case in fact that we have so many brand new creators who have like been merging their way sort of into the industry as superstars, whether you're talking about the big two front or talking about the indie front, right? And you have obviously not only your books, but I mean, you want to talk about literally there is a comic for you out there. No matter what place you go, like if you want something superhero, like even if you aren't a Marvel or DC fan, I feel like you can still find those types of stories over at Image or over at Dark Horse or Boom or what have you. And I think we're in such a big craze now for so many different things that it feels like somebody tells me like there might not be a comic book for me or graphic novel for me. I feel like I can give them something and it'll sate that satisfaction. Like I feel like we're living in a golden age of creativity and
Oh,
have
for
been for the
sure.
last couple of years.
Well, and part of it comes from, I'm part of a generation that grew up with The Dark Knight and Watchmen, like that. Like you think about like what was happening when we were in high school, and that really informs like a whole generation of creators. Is like basically what were you reading and what did it inspire out of you, right? So for my generation, it was the big moves were and they were overwhelming. They were like it's hard to describe how everywhere Dark Knight Returns was in the comic book space. But Dark Knight, Watchmen, Mouse, and Love and Rockets were basically like the big statements that propelled a lot of our journeys as creators. And then even 10 years ago, I remember looking at the big YA wall at Barnes and Noble,
Mm-hmm.
that graphic novel wall that
Yeah.
did not exist, and it, filled with Raina Telgemeier and Captain Underpants and so many others. Judd Winnick, I don't think gets enough credit for Hilo,
Mm-hmm.
and just these long running excellent book series that speak to truth and I looked at the wall and I said, I go, wow, I wonder what this generation of readers will then create, you know? Like we know we see what the Watchmen babies made. Like let's see what the Raina babies make. And I feel we are right now at that cusp of, Raina sat there and said, "Here's my smile, what's yours?" And then for 10 years, a lot of creators been thinking about that, and now they're making their books. It's amazing.
It is like I can't tell you how many times. Like I worked at a comic shop
Me
from
too.
2021 to 2022. I guess just like you, right in Cleveland, right? So,
Hmm.
I remember like almost every week, like a kid would come in and their mom's asking, "Hey, I don't know what to pick up for my kid. The shop's so big." And I would say like, "Hey, we got Bone here. We've got Hilo. We've got Smile." Like I can't tell you how many times like I've recommended those graphic novels and those kids end up like loving it and their parents are back. They're like, "We want more of this." Like it's pretty fascinating to see that.
It's the best
Yeah.
too. I always I loved recommending a book to someone and then nailing it, And I'd always say like, hey, if you don't like it, bring it back. I'm not trying to like high sell you on something
Right.
to get it out of here. I really think you're gonna love this, and I'm wrong. Just bring it on back. We'll find a home for it, right? And that kind of interaction with someone can be really, really magical. So I'm glad you experienced it too. That was my favorite part of working at a store.
Yeah, just the overall thought of more people being able to read more comics already gives me a smile at my face. Like to see
Hmm.
somebody try and say, maybe I haven't delved into this world as much, or maybe I've seen a couple of Marvel movies or DC movies and that's it. Let me move over to a different location. And they try it, and it's like, wow, this is a new world for me. I want to envelop myself in that. Like, to see the look on so many people's faces when you've had that opportunity, even if it might not, say, even be your favorite book or something like that. Like to see the joy on people's faces after they've experienced it and they said, I need more, I want more. That is, I think, one of the best feelings that you can have just sort of trying to promote and recommend these books as much as possible.
Well, I appreciate that. And also I'll add on to it with the reason I teach, the reason I have my website open with educational videos from all over the world is because I have discovered that the only thing better than recommending a book to someone and them digging it is being part of the authorship of it, being any part of the collaboration that brings someone any kind of spark of joy or good feelings or just just being blown away by something is an overwhelmingly positive experience. Like and worth all the hours and hours and hours it takes to get good at something to kind of connect with people and having experienced it as a reader and as a seller and as a writer it just escalates and escalates and for people who kind of want to be part of that journey I want to help you get there. It's an amazing place to be.
Which is some of the best words that I can hear, for any single comic creator. So happy that you're on that front as well and being able to share the word about this entire form that's so unique, that speaks to so many people around the world.
Thank you.
So, if I may, I have a couple of questions about some of your most recent work over at Dark Horse. The
Sure.
first of which is Masterpiece, which you are doing with Alex Maleev. Well, one of many books that you've done with Alex. How was the collaboration between you two? How do you pitch ideas to Alex and say like, "Hey, want to type up this?" How does that all pan out as far as that's concerned?
Well, Alex and I have been working together. This is one of the longest creative relationships in my life. And we met, like I remember in the 90s, he was drawing The Crow, and me and David Mack got hired to write a different series of The Crow, and we wanted to work with Alex. And I remember thinking, Alex is the best artist of what I imagined our peer group. Like I didn't know him, I didn't know how old he was, but I assumed anyone working in black and white comics in that space was
Mm-hmm.
around my age.
Right.
And I was like, oh, and of all of the people in my life, like I work with some real master illustrators. I mean, David Mack is a brilliant illustrator, but Alex was my goal. Like I was trying to draw like Alex, like or in that space. And when I saw his work, I was like, oh, it just spoke to me so much. So we've been working together on and off ever since, and we did some stuff in Image, and then we were lucky enough to have our, which was a good like table setting for our Daredevil run, which is really where we got to really shine.
Hmm.
And so from all of those years on Daredevil, we really cemented like a great working relationship. And also just got to find out like Alex is very clear about like what he likes and what he doesn't and where he wants to put his pen and where he doesn't. And and it was along a very similar place to where I want to write. I mean, just we were so it's very exciting to try to hit those notes for him. Like, you know what I mean? To and also I take his art so seriously. I write very precious for him. And so it was great to like do Daredevil together and to have these moments we had at DC. But these two creator-owned projects we've done, both Masterpiece and Scarlet, which you just showed up there a second ago. I think Scarlet is one of the greatest things he's ever done. There are whole sequences of that book that are just so masterfully illustrated. I'm stunned by them. I know my name's on it, and I go, wow, God damn, that is amazing. And so when we are working together, I tend to. It's hard to describe because I do this with everybody, but there's a special energy in which I curate a script for Alex thinking about what matters to him. Like I have a very clear idea of what matters to him as a storyteller, and so that often allows me an opportunity to look at a scene like in Masterpiece. It's a heist comic.
It,
There's a heist going on. There's a gathering of the thing of the gang to pull off the heist, and it's one of my favorite genres. But what I love about the genre is how many people have done something new with it. And Alex's presence in the collaboration forces me to think about a new take on every scene. And that's kind of what you want out of a collaboration. That's my short answer after a long answer, but that really is it is when I think about like how I would tackle every scene for Alex, it allowed me to get to where I wanted to go as a writer and the kind of book I'd want to read. And I was thrilled with the reaction, by the way. The people have been reaching out to us on all social media about Masterpiece, and wow, thank you. But I really some people picked it up just on our names and didn't even know what the hook was, and that's more than anyone could ever hope for. So thank you.
yeah, I feel like with especially with you and Alex, considering the long tenure that you guys have had together on so many different projects, I like for me when I hear you two on a book, I'm like, yeah, why am I not going to get that? Like it's you two, right? Like it's like the perfect sync like symphony in terms of you bringing along the script, and then Alex I think who just does these like street level slash grounded like grounded realities super well, no matter if it's, you know, if you're in Hell's Kitchen or if it's a completely brand new universe. So I never feel like you guys are offbeat with each other. Like I feel like, you know, your work on Daredevil, Spider Woman,
Yeah,
and
Spider-Woman's a
yeah.
big one for us. That even though it's only 7 issues, it was years of our life because we were doing those motion comics
Yep.
first
Hmm.
as part like it was part of a motion comics initiative at Marvel. So we're basically like wiggling it around a little bit and having actors and it was basically a radio play on top of a comic and that was a big project for us. I actually think that's one of Alex's high marks too. It
Oh,
looks like
it's a gorgeous
yeah, it's a
book.
stunning book. Yeah.
And you also are working too on Joy Opera. You also put out the second volume, I should say, of Joy Operations. Are we going to
Yeah.
see a third one soon, or?
I hope this is and in contrast to my very long collaboration with Alex, my relationship with Steven is newer. Like we just met a couple years ago. I just love his stuff, and he knows it because the minute I got the opportunity to hire people at DC Comics, we hired him for Wonder Twins, which was like my North Star. Like if I could get DC to publish Wonder Twins, I've done something good in the world. And him and Mark Russell on that was a dream
Oh,
for me. And those pages would come in on Wonder Twins, and I just
yeah,
loved him so
same.
much. And I told him, I go, listen, if you ever want to like go crazy with me and build some stuff, let me know. And we started cooking Joy Operations. It was the loveliest collaboration. I just every page was so exciting. So I hope we get to do another one. We don't know what planned, but I would work with Stephen again in a heartbeat. I hope we do get to do it.
Yeah, because Joy Operations, for at least those two, like those have been some of my
Mhm.
favorite books over what you're doing at Dark Horse.
Thank you.
Yeah, just the way, again, like it feels like you're in symphony with all these collaborators. But yeah, like that's how I got exposed sort of to Stephen Byrne and his art on Wonder Twins with Mark Russell, and he had done a couple of Teen Titans variant slash fan art, and I was like, wow, this guy's really good. I need to go check out what he's doing.
He's an excellent social media follow too. He does a lot of stuff just for social media that's just adorable, just incredible and cute as hell. So yeah, I'm a fan then, fan now. I hope we get to work together again. Just couldn't be happier with it. So yeah, and I appreciate you liking the book. It's one of those books that has a couple of narrative tricks, like
Hmm.
big tricks that if I tell you them, then I kind of ruin the trick.
Right.
So it's a kind of have to ask people to trust me. We did something new in the book, and it was exciting to find out no one had tried it before, and that we could do it. We could pull it off. So
Yeah, I remember when that book dropped at my local comic shop. Usually, if I'm lounging around or if there's nothing to do, like at certain points of the day, right, where it's not rush hour, I was like, man, I gotta, read this and pick this up. And me and my coworkers, we had like sort of a little meet where we tried to read some of the new number ones that came out this week and came back with them. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I didn't expect that out of this book, right? But I was like, God, this is fun.
I thank you. That is literally what I was hoping for. That is the reaction you hope for. And also, I also remember one of the best parts, the second best part about working in the comic store. Number one is giving people new books that they would not have
Hmm.
thought of.
Yep. Hmm.
It's one of my favorite scenes in that movie, High Fidelity, where they're working at the
Hmm.
record store
Yeah.
and you go, I know you'll love this. That's my favorite. But my second favorite is just being able to like amp up your literacy, just like sit at the counter and just tear into books that you wouldn't be able to on your own or afford or have the time to do. And I read so much stuff. I
Mm.
mean, really like didn't even really understand what an independent comic was before I worked at a comic store. Like I didn't even understand I was making creator-owned comics. Like I didn't know they existed. I thought I was inventing them. And
Mm.
getting to consume so many, really, I'm so glad I did that. And I tell people if you want to, I think working at a comic store was one of the best things I did as a comic book creator because not only did I get to see how they're sold and how they're marketed and like to see that side of it, um, but to also interact with customers, but then also to observe how the readers react to a good book or a shitty book or bullshit or a book that or even more important, a book that doesn't ship on time and how
Hmm.
disappointing that is to the thing. Sometimes you can't help it,
Yeah.
sometimes you can. And to see someone come in and genuinely disappointed that their favorite book isn't there,
Hmm.
I think about that all the time. That's why, like, I really try never to be late with anything because I remember those faces.
Yeah. No, that's much appreciated, especially on the timeline crunches and the deadline crunches that you guys are on, right? I mean, I
Oh,
can't
sure.
imagine, right? Like I'm reading your
Yeah.
Fortune and Glory book and I'm like, man, how much work did Brian sort of like have to do on the side before he could put this like one issue out that he's talking about? Like I can't imagine like ramping up and trying to do that along with the rest of your lives, right?
It's just the gig and it doesn't and also the weird part is it doesn't like get easier as you get older. It doesn't mean there's not any less work like it doesn't you don't land like someone said like I wish I could just like write my first draft and it's perfect. And I'm like
Right.
it's never happened. It's never happened. It never will. And you know what going in and there's a big part of this is sculpting and you just you kind of love that part of it or you don't.
Right.
And for those of us who love it, it doesn't. Also, it is a lot of long hours and it is like quote unquote hard work. But I've also had real jobs that were hard work. And the hardest day in comics is man, I had to think some thoughts. It's really you can you know I lose sleep sometimes, but it's always I'm always proud of what happened at the end of it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. Even despite every single part of your life, just sort of like figuring out what to balance and like even me, like I'm still in college and I'm still writing essays, and it's like I wish I could do an essay where I only draft it like once or twice and it's done, but it's never like that.
I know, and everyone thinks like AI is going to deliver that, and I don't think it is. I don't think that's how any of this works.
I
And
no.
you know,
I had a I had a friend who was trying to get his whole entire essay done like via AI because I guess the teacher recommended it. I'm not trying to out anyone, and
oh
then he was like,
really? I'm
"Yeah,
like I'm the opposite. I'm like no AI in this class.
yeah," and I like me like I've never personally used it, despite teachers somewhat encouraging me to try to. I'm like, it's not if it's not by me, it doesn't feel authentic. I can't tell you like how the teacher responded when he saw the essay of my friend and it was terrible. Like I read it and I was like the sentence structures, the run-ons, the way that the paragraphs are all organized, the like no coherency in thoughts. It was insane. Like I couldn't figure out like what on earth was going on and what but to your point, I mean it's I don't know if
No,
it's going to solve yeah.
I understand people want to wave a magic wand and the perfect thing appears before them, but that's it. First of all, it's just creating things, just sitting down and making it. It's like physically making it. What, no matter what tool you're using, digital or physically drawing on a piece of paper, it's physically making it is what it's about. It's the
Right.
journey and the destination, both. And a lot of people who read books like this or listen to music like this or watch movies like this, they want your author's hand. They like you tell me a story, you give me a point of view, where are you in this, why do you care enough to tell the story, like why are you losing sleep over this,
Right.
right? That's what people want, even if they're just plopping down in front of the couch and just turning on the TV and just take me somewhere. Like take me somewhere
Mhm.
away from me to you,
Mhm.
right? So if you're AIing it, you're just that there's nothing there. I mean,
Completely
maybe
agree.
one day there will be. Maybe one day there will be but at the moment, it certainly seems that we're trying to like art is about expression.
Right.
So express yourself. And even like, you know, a lot of us look at our earlier work and all you see is the mistakes or things you would do differently. And then there's a weird part of you that realizes, oh no, that's the parts people liked about you. Like they like when you listen to a song,
Mhm.
there's something, it's not perfect music. You can hear someone's feedback. That's the part you like. You know what I mean? There's someone in there. I'm listening to these podcasts on Blank Check is doing the early days of Spielberg, and
Mhm.
you're watching a master at his messiest, like, and he keeps going back to Close Encounters and re-editing it, because he never feels he landed it. I'm like, no, that's what people like about it. It's a little messy, right? So it's an interesting journey. This Everyone's shooting for perfection, and that's not the point.
Right.
Except for you should try,
I
but you're
completely
not gonna hit
agree
it.
on all fronts.
There's nothing. It doesn't exist.
Completely agreed. To sort of bring it back though, you mentioned music. I would like to know what are your favorite songs, genres, artists? I know that you probably have a lot, and it's a loaded question, but
Oh yeah, I mean, I have like I'm a man of a certain age, but and I was lucky enough. I grew up. It's so funny. I grew up in the synth pop '80s, but I really uh, became myself or started the journey of self in the 90s, which was where grunge was popping. Literally, grunge started like the day I published my first comic. So it's hard not to look at them. Like even you look at Jinx, and again, having just recently revisited it, I was shocked how much it looked like a zine.
mm-hmm.
Like it looks more like a zine than a comic, and I like that, but I was startled by it when I saw it. I'm like zine culture was more important. Like right there, like zine culture was way more important
Right.
than any other influence I thought I was carrying with me. And so all that music and I think you showed Torso before. I you literally it looks like a Rancid album cover
Mm-hmm.
because I was listening to nothing but
Right.
Rancid the entire time I was making that graphic novel. So,
Interesting
well, my
stuff.
music, yeah, Beastie Boys, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of alternative 90s all the way through, and also was like kind of great having kids of different ages. Is that I'm always interested in what's going on in music. So I've been current now almost my entire life. Thanks because of my kids and their different tastes in music
That
as
is
well.
so cool. Yeah, and we have, I think, just like comics, like, well, how much music there is in the world now, right?
Yeah.
Which is,
And but and it's fun. Like I get to as a dad, I get I played them Beastie Boys their whole life. Like also Beastie Boys are very like nursery rhymey, so you can
hmm
play Beastie Boys to little kids, and then they grow up and they love the Beastie Boys forever.
hmm
So I've been you can incept your children with musical taste. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of the best thing you know.
I gotta write that down at some point.
You
So that
absolutely can.
so
No, we had prenatal speakers hooked up to my wife on our first kid.
wow,
I don't think they sell them anymore, but you could literally put little speakers up to the belly, and we would like
interesting. That I
play
did
the
not know.
Beatles. Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Okay, I
And then
gotta.
and then she ended up being a musician, which was hilarious.
Oh
It
my
was
gosh, that's the perfect storyboard ending as far as that's concerned. And I also have to ask. I know that we have the diamond situation going on right now, and all this other stuff. But we had, at least from Dark Horse, we have a lot of these super cool, big library editions.
yeah.
Mark Millar is putting like one out a month. I think what came out. It was Magic Order one. I think that came out from
Oh,
him this year.
I'm sorry I don't have it in this room, but I just got a copy. I posted it on my Instagram of the new Kabuki 30th anniversary
Mm.
hardcover,
It's
which is by one of my best friends in the whole world, David Mack. And I've been on that journey with him the whole 30 years. And this 1,500 page brick of a book, it's just an incredible achievement. Not only for David, but I literally was on a Zoom with Mike Richardson
mhm.
and as it showed up, and I'm like, look what you published. It's huge.
It's
It's
so
an
big.
insane book. Yeah.
Do you?
And it's one of the reasons we all love Dark Horse
Mhm.
is their dedication to these beautiful productions. Yeah,
They
it's
are, and the work I would assume to be putting it into it, the scans and restoration, reproduction, and all that. I mean, I can't imagine.
it's an incredible team back there, led by our executive editor Daniel Shaban, who runs all of Jinx World and Kelly Sue's FML and David Mack stuff and Mike Oeming stuff and all tons of creator-owned stuff. Most of that arm of Dark Horse is run by Daniel Shaban, who is one of the greats in this industry. I'm so happy to be partnered with him.
That is so awesome to hear. I guess one follow up to that, and then a second question regarding those library editions. The first of which is that I know a lot of people, at least online, at least have told me that the first couple of library editions, like not the big, thick 1,500 plus page one, but the thinner ones. I know that those have had like some weaker scans in some pages. Do you know if the new one, like, it's all perfect, I guess, in that case, or not sure?
Which one? Of which book?
That's a great question because I was told this by somebody. So,
No, I will say the Dark Horse editions were immaculately reproduced and
oh,
taken over to the point where even though they have been published professionally
hmm
at Marvel and DC, and DC went through these as well, Dark Horse found some 30-year-old typos in Jinx and fixed them as well.
wow.
They were immaculately went through and adjusted for production. So I I've flipped through them. I can't think of an off page. In fact, like we had something was off on the printing on Fortune Glory the musical, and
Mhm.
I never even saw it. They bumped it and put out a new printing without even
Wow, no
telling me.
hesitation.
Yeah, so no, they have a good printer thing. Go, hey, you guys messed this one up, fix it.
Right.
And so as far as I can tell, and if anyone hits me on the Discord or anything, these all of these things that you're showing right now are, mwah.
That's so
Yeah.
good to yeah. Because I look at some of those library editions and I'm like, man, these are gorgeous. And I
Are they talking about like some other like another author's books? I literally cannot think of an off page production wise on any of the our Dark Horse books.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I can't think of anything.
that's awesome. And
And in fact, I often have the opposite feeling. I'm like, this art, like my artwork, did not deserve this amount of love and dedication. I'm often quite moved by how seriously they take our stuff.
oh man,
It's
that's
quite
awesome to
lovely.
hear. And I hope at some point, I don't know if you know about them, but I would love to have, say, Powers in a library edition or Scarlet in a. I know that Scarlet was put out in an absolute edition, but I
Yeah,
can't, I
if you
can't find
find
it.
yeah, if you find one floating around, that is of the top three favorite things I've ever put out in the universe. It was that absolute edition of Scarlet. It is a stunning look at Alex's work, and it's yeah, I love those absolute editions.
Mhm.
I
Me
yeah,
too.
I'm so happy to have one. With powers, well, yes, yeah, yes, I want fancy everything for all books all the time, but I'm also, um, it's a balance. Like you also want it to be affordable and
Hmm.
readable,
Right.
right? And powers in particular is now we're not to be a braggy again, but this is our 25th anniversary this
Hmm.
year, and we have big plans for it, and we're really excited about it.
Oh,
But
okay.
that's a that's a lot of back issues that you want people to be able to afford to read,
Right.
and you want that journey to be an invitation versus an obstacle. And
Right.
so these the versions we put out right now through Dark Horse are literally meant to be as reader friendly and nice as possible. Like that's the balance.
Right. It's like I can't think of a lot better deals as far as, hey, like for 29.99 at least USD you can read 12 issues of Powers, whatever volume that might
15,
be your look.
15,
15,
sometimes
right?
20.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's great to hear that you're thinking of both the reader, the customer, and everybody else who checks out your books. But
Again, that
yeah.
goes back to our time working in the comic store. You see someone going, I'm buying this with what might be my only entertainment money this week. Like I've chosen of all the things I could buy or all the movies I could go see, I'm going to buy this book. I would really like to be able to look this person in the eye and say, I thought of every way I could make this fun for you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And of course, because you brought that up, now we obviously have Ultimate Spider-Man available now in seemingly every format. I remember like 6 years ago, like I could not figure out where to get a copy of like the complete collections or whatever they used to call them back in the day. And now it's like we've got the omnibuses out of those, and like I think I mentioned before, you have I think they just showed up on the screen. You got Miles
Yeah.
Morales and your regular Ultimate Spider-Man both being available now in the Epic Collection format. Um,
Thrilled. Thrilled with this format.
yes, same here. How was it like starting a universe from scratch and being able to detail the web slinger in your own unique viewpoint?
I'm still in process on that answer. It's an ongoing part of my life that this was my dream. My childhood
Mm-hmm.
dream was to get to do this. And as I entered this space to do my dream job, Marvel evolved over and over and over again around me and with me. They went like they hired me in bankruptcy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they created the Iron Man movie that became the MCU, that became Disney, like all and that became video games, that became motion comics, that became all of these spaces that were all magical and cool things that all of us got to do. But all of that was not even the dream because again, it wasn't something you could dream of. It didn't exist. So here we are having had the experience of having the longest run on Spider-Man ever, putting a new Spider-Man in the toy box, people not being mad at me for doing it, and and being able to write video games and cartoon
Mm-hmm.
shows and then the movies continue. Everything about this is magical and is ongoing. Like there are people in discovering Miles every day and like it's new. I know like Miles has been around now for like 12, 14
Right.
years, but there's some kid just discovering it every day. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm also very aware of like I've met a lot of my heroes, like a lot of elder statesmen in this business, and some of them also have had the experience I'm having, but was when they were way older or they had passed. Like
Right.
Jack Kirby did not get to experience the end of Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
I think about it all the time. The end of
Mm-hmm.
Avengers Endgame is characters from every decade of his life
Right.
coming together to make people happy in a way nothing was making people happy,
Right.
right? And how magical that would have been for him to be able to see that. He literally said in interviews, I want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I want that, and I want my book on nice white paper. And both things happened, but not in his lifetime. And
Right.
what a blessing it is that I'm alive for all of this,
Mm-hmm.
and I get to experience it with my kids. It's just and it's a warm feeling that people have. It's like um the part I couldn't control is that Miles is a warm space in people's hearts, and the people that make the movies have created a space where it makes people want to draw and do stuff, like create things. All of that is magical, and I just have to like just be zen about it and accepting of it. It's just a beautiful thing, and it was more than what I was hoping for. So I just have to like take it in
Mm-hmm.
and I've discovered that my way to take it in is then to go teach other people how to make comics.
Right.
Like that seems to be my like how I can process it. So yeah, it is a gift I can't believe. I can't believe it. I was talking to Joe Quesada the other day
Mm-hmm.
about it. Like, yeah, there was no one more standing next to me through all of it in the early days and saw how scrappy and maybe we'll try this and maybe we'll try that, and then to watch it all land like this while we're still here is really amazing.
It is like I consider you, Ed Brubaker, Joe Q, so many other creators, from the early mid 2000s, sort of not only the saviors of Marvel, but also the fathers of what the modern Marvel universe would be. Like, I have read the first couple of arcs of New Avengers so many times to the point where I'm like, man, like I don't even know if I'd be getting some of these Avengers movies if it weren't for you and David Finch and Alex and Lionel Francis Yu, and Olivier Coipel and so many other creators being able to put in all the work to just say like, hey, we want to bring these guys to the S tier for Marvel as far as getting people in and having fun with the titles. And I mean, it just must be insane just to think and wrap your head around that.
It is. I'm now at that. Well, so I'm now in this space where I am just like I'm not physically making the comics right now, but they continue as you described. They put out new editions of them all the time. So anytime I get like an itch to like be in that space, I'm reminded I am in that space. Like there are people buying our Avengers run right now or Daredevil right now as if it's a new book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an oldie yet. It's just something that Marvel puts out, and that is a gift. I am just happy with how everyone feels about it. I know there are people online that get snarked up, and I celebrate that as well. It's a gift. Again, it's just a gift. I don't know how else to say it. It's just a gift. It just has many, many layers to it. Some of it feels super braggy, so my body shuts down. Like, don't but at the same time, I want to describe what it feels like so people who want to make comics can feel that maybe that might be a goal that they want to go for because some of this stuff really, like even the stuff that didn't work out the way I'd hoped, even that feels great. Like I'm really glad I messed that up and I could learn something. Like
Right.
everything about it was cool. So
No, that's awesome. And like I guess in that case, I remember I was binging season 1 of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes with my dad because I wasn't like the thing is I wasn't a Marvel kid growing up. I was a DC kid. Like I was watching Teen Titans, Young Justice, all those shows, right? And I wasn't into Marvel, so I'm like catching up all this stuff now, like sort of like late high school, college days and whatnot. And every time I watch that show with my dad, I'm thinking about Disassembled. Like it's crazy.
yeah.
Um, it's like
Well, we were making the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon while they were making that one,
mhm,
and I will say that and this happens in the movies as well,
Mhm.
and in Spider-Verse, like every time someone I don't know, like references something we did in the comics or takes that idea and goes with it, you feel very validated. Like you sometimes you come up with ideas and go, it's and particularly with like superhero comics, like the silliest ideas can be the best ideas. The gun-toting raccoon could be the best idea or the dumbest idea. Like it's such a fine line. And so you're sitting there going, I like all these things that we put into the toy box, we really mean them. Like we really, and I really hope someone else thinks they're a good idea. And when someone else picks up the baton and keeps running, it feels like, oh, thank you for telling me that wasn't a stupid idea. That's
Right.
so that cartoon particularly is filled with stuff where we're like, oh, thank you for understanding why we made that choice or wanting to adapt it into something for you guys. Yeah, it's cool. Like my pal Matt Fraction
Mhm.
called it. You're running a relay race, like someone hands you the baton and you run for one issue, six issues, 100 issues, however long you're allowed to run, and you hand it off and hope that you didn't lose the race.
Mhm.
In the meantime, whatever the metaphor, however you want to pull it, but it is an interesting creative concept of you're like improving with future collaborators
Mhm.
that you don't even know who they are yet.
And you got to do a lot of stuff with Matt, and obviously, I mean, you guys have been, I think, so close. At least, from the writing perspective, and obviously getting to do DC stuff with Superman, Jimmy Olsen. But yeah, I can't imagine like how much those relationships and all that, like we talked about earlier, and obviously, I mean, you saying this again, I mean, that's big in and of itself. And also, Matt, I mean, that's a perfect metaphor. Honestly, I wish I thought of that. I'm like,
Yeah, me
yeah.
too. That's why Matt often says stuff I quote a lot because I'm like, I should have thought of that.
But I guess I should have expected that from someone who wrote my favorite Hawkeye run back all those years ago.
One of the joys of my life is I get to read a lot of Matt's behind the scenes documents, like a lot of his pitch documents, and like we just sold a TV show together,
Ooh.
and he wrote a pitch. Like he's so good at things I'm not good at, and there's such a delight to read them. Like I really feel like I've like some of the best stuff I've ever read in my whole life is stuff that no one's ever going to see that Matt wrote.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's not for the public. It's just stuff that was
That's
for us. Yeah.
I'm jealous now.
Yeah, I'm one of the magic tricks of my life is I'm surrounded by people so far better than me in their craft that no, it just I feel I'm one of those species that needs like I can't like I feel like I can't go to dinner if I'm gonna suck today. Like I can't be in the room with these people if I'm not at least trying,
But
you know,
you do cool stuff in and of
in my
yourself,
space.
Brian.
But you know what I mean? It just
Right,
there's
right, right.
I feel the same way about David Mack and Kelly Sue, and there's just a lot of Greg Rucka. There's a lot of people in my life where I just feel their level of craft is so excellent that is one of the inspirations for me on a daily basis. Is if we're going to be in a conversation together,
Hmm.
I should do some homework.
Completely understandable. And I guess to talk about all those people, you, if I'm not mistaken, are also the creator slash father of the Marvel Summits. Am I mistaken on that?
No, no, no,
No. Okay.
no. I'm a beneficiary of the
Beneficiary.
Marvel Summits for sure.
Hmm.
But no, they had them in if memory again these are other people's memories, but they would have them in the 90s and in other eras of time. But when Marvel was in bankruptcy, they certainly had stopped. And when the Joe Quesada era started, they had it literally started with me and Mark Miller. They just had us up to the office, and the first like quote unquote like summit was seven of us at a small card table in a break room, like little like almost like a poker game, just like at a little table. I remember that's where Marvel Zombies came from, and um, and from that, oh, we should do this more. It came summits that got bigger and bigger, and then it was 20 people, then it was 50 people, then it was 150 people. Like they would become enormous gatherings of talent and people inside the offices, and that started. Bill Jemis started doing that. He had
Hmm.
one. We had one big Marvel summit where most of the things that you're showing here on screen came from, which was he literally had no agenda other than why do we publish Iron Man?
Hmm.
Why do we publish the Avengers?
Right.
What like not because it's successful and we own it, but what's the point of it? What's the theme? Like what are we supposed what's the point of its existence creatively?
Hmm.
Are we hitting it? And if not, why not? And also it was great about is any of these ideas just treading water from old ideas, or are they building on those ideas? And from there became what people kind of perceive now as Joe Quesada's era at Marvel that continues on to this day. So that my Avengers came out of there. The basically what the future of the Ultimate Universe. Ultimate Universe wasn't built there, but it cemented its plans there for sure. And when I I wasn't going to be the Avengers writer, but I walked out of there an Avengers writer. And so yeah, it's just a lot of magical things happened in that room. Captain America died in that room.
Oh,
So
and
yeah,
I'm still shocked by that Ed Brubaker run. Like I have all the omnibuses, and every single time, like I go back to the death of Captain America, I always still end up shocked. Like I don't know why, I just do.
it's
Um,
good storytelling. The guy can write.
oh, he
The
definitely
guy can
can.
write.
He definitely can. I'd like to bring it a little bit back to Ultimate Spider-Man, and I guess you could also add Avengers in this because you were on those titles for so long. Obviously, two different characters for Spider-Man. One being alive for 11, and then the other one still very much a big impact in today's Marvel universe and all around the globe. And then of course, New Avengers, Dark Avengers, where you were not only able to write stuff like House of M, Secret Invasion, and Siege, but also transitioning to eras like Dark Reign, and then eventually handing over the keys to Jonathan Hickman, 2012. So my question to you is, because you're on those books for so long, how are you able to figure out, I need to do this for the plot, we need to get this fixture in? How are you able to keep the table running fresh with new ideas for all of those years that you were on those books?
It it was first of all, I was surrounded by good collaboration and healthy collaboration, which I now see what a gift that can be, and that doesn't happen in every space. But um, what you figure out, and because I was surrounded by people who were also figuring it out, is that we're all in a shared creative universe space. Like we're all building this all together, right? We're all like it's a living organism that's like building and feeding off of all of us together. And there are certain people who at different times are like kind of leading the charge. And sometimes it was me, sometimes it was Ed, sometimes it was Matt. And and from there, like and if it's your if you're like when I'm doing Secret Invasion, if like and by the time and that by the time we got to Secret Invasion, it felt like that was us at our best. Like everyone had kind of figured out like the new rules of how to do all of this, and it was kind of you kind of figure out like this is a very much like real life. Like you start your day with a plan, and the job is to get as much of that plan done as possible. But also, things are going to happen during the day that
Mm-hmm.
you are not like prepared for. Some things are big things or little things or things that don't even seem that like a big deal, but end up being a huge deal down the line. It's a lot like real life. So, like stick to the plan that you have. Like we're scrolls are invading, but whenever if people throw ideas at you or plans, and you are in a position to yes and this idea into existence, it becomes, I don't know, probably kind of like the point of all of it is like how to like make it all happen at once, just like you do in real life. Like how can I get all the parts of my life together today, right?
Right.
That's your job today. Same thing with the shared universe of Marvel and all we're all working. And if you're like part of a family and are all working towards a similar goal, it feels the same way. It feels like we're all working towards making this a healthy space in which everyone gets to express themselves. So yeah, I grew into that space. It grew around me. It supported me. I got to like do it a couple of times, so really got to feel like I kind of mastered it on some level. Like we kind of stumbled into it on House of M, and then did it on purpose for a secret invasion. And in between, we did Civil War, which we learned a lot of lessons from.
Mm-hmm.
So like lot of lessons being learned, and then I got to then be part of other people's chance at doing stuff like that, whether it be an event or some kind of a new publishing initiative. And I liked being when it was my turn to host and it was my turn to be part of the ensemble, both of which I found very enlightening for me personally. So yeah, I loved it. And also, again, just to rewind, all of this is way beyond. I just want to write Spider-Man.
Right.
I hope one day I get to write Spider-Man. That'd be awesome. And then all of this is happening because of it. Yeah, it's incredible.
That is so awesome to hear, and hearing how you're able to be malleable in both spots, whether you were the person show running, like in the case of House of M or Civil War, where it's like you got to figure out a way to tie your books into the grander narrative, right? So,
I again at the time, I'm glad my impulses and basically how I was raised just made me want to be more like yes and they're very much improv. If you know the tenets of improv, like you
mm-hmm.
hear them over and over again from
Oh yeah,
comedians, yes and elevating ideas instead of stopping them. And that's my gut instinct goes there, and I'm thrilled that there's an art form around it. But I have also seen creators like in that space in those rooms go no, and then like mine, and it's very much like it gets very, you can feel like even the energy of a playground, like the kids that are having fun playing together, and the kids it's not it's like, no, my toys. And you're like, you're not having any fun, buddy. You got, yeah, you're squeezing all the toys, and it's it's very similar behavior. And when you see, and so I've had the benefit of watching a couple people not get what they want
mm-hmm.
doing that. So even if my impulse was to do that, which I don't think it would ever be, but to see that happen, go, oh, that's what you get when that happens. I can tell my students, yeah, it doesn't work. I've seen it. It doesn't work. No matter how great the writer is and how grand the vision is, if you start barking orders at people, it's not going to be what you want it to be. It's
Mm-hmm.
better to inspire out of others. It always works best, you know?
Right. Interesting stuff. I would never have thought it envisioned like that, but I assume like if you have so many different personalities and creatives in the room, there's always bound to be tension, right?
Oh,
Because
and also a lot of us, like I wrote about this in cover because
mm-hmm.
it struck me as the oddest thing. Like most of us made a conscious choice to create a life for ourselves where we can be alone in a room drawing comics. Like that, like everything about this life is like I want to be alone. And I'm going to sit here and draw my comics. And then if you do them really well, if you get really, really good at it, your reward is you have to sit on a stage and entertain a panel of people. It's like this. I don't have any of the muscles for this. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've built a different set of muscles. So you have a bunch of people that are alone in the room.
Right.
But what we discovered mostly is that when we all get together in a room, we're so excited to share with you what we've been building by ourselves in a pot, and we're so excited to um, empower each other to keep going. Like even there was even like people that I didn't particularly get along with in the room. Like we just grew up differently with different energy, but like we were rooting for each other. Like I really when I watch these SNL documentaries that they're putting on a Peacock, it feels very similar to SNL to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like there's competition and there, but everyone's really trying to make sure everyone gets the best. If something fucks up, it's bad for everybody,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I just like even like I don't know, and there's creative people who just do things for different like have different passions than I'll ever have. Like they're here for with a different reasoning. And I don't know. I think what's magical about the Marvel universe is that you have all these different voices happening at the same time, or DC, same any shared universe where there's different voices, really trying to express themselves all at the same time. Kind of the magic's been going on for decades. Um, but yeah, I mean, you don't get anything out of getting in someone's way
Mm.
or trying to like also I don't know I've had just like this experience that we're describing is so overwhelming to me and so beautiful. I would like everyone else I ever meet to experience this.
That is so cool to hear
Yeah.
some of the
No.
different behind the scenes in terms of collaboration and what you guys think of. Hey, like this, you got this cool grand idea, or maybe this might be. It's really cool to see you guys have those conversations and also figure out like what's going on in your guys' heads at different points in time.
Oh yeah, and also like sometimes when I think back on it, the only time I wince at my behavior is if I was overly enthusiastic about something to the point where I was maybe not hearing that maybe someone else wasn't. Yeah, like I get so excited about an idea that I'm like, oh, only me? Okay.
Right.
And some of that, but it's okay. That's the worst thing I did was get really excited about an idea, you know.
At least you guys were super enthusiastic about all the books. It makes me feel good to see like you guys putting all the passion and energy into all the works that you're putting out. I mean, that to me is already an A+ in terms of like just me hearing that assures me.
And with some distance, just last week I put out this book called Fortune and Glory, the
Mm-hmm.
musical, which you flashed on the screen, which I appreciate, about this weird couple weeks when I was hired to be the writer of the Spider-Man Broadway musical.
Mm-hmm.
That should not have happened. But it was just an excuse for me to really do a graphic novel about loving comics and loving getting where I ended up going. And I got a feedback from Tom Brevoort, who was my editor on most of the things we're discussing. All my Avengers, all the event books we did, all of the bigger plans was, this magical, all the lessons of Tom Brevoort being applied to it, and then Tom reading my graphic novel and having warm enough feelings that he shares them publicly with people made me like, oh, I felt very warm. It made me feel very warm about this whole thing we're talking about over again. It's just
Right.
like, oh, good, he feels the way I felt. Having your bosses and collaborators feel as warmly about it as you do is pretty special. So I'm feeling pretty warm about it.
Yeah, me too. And it's such a wonderful autobiography too. I had such a fun time reading and parsing it
Oh,
through,
thanks.
and
Thank you for reading it. Thank you.
so that's been big. And I cannot also leave without talking about your Daredevil run, because that was sort of one of my first gateways into your work. And quick shout out to a friend of mine, Jess Bragg. He's the main channel guy for a YouTube channel called Omnidog, where he interviewed Mike Allred, who's apparently a close friend of yours as well. If I
We're pals.
We're
We
pals,
came
okay.
up together. Like me, Allred, and Ed Brubaker all debuted at a small publisher the same month.
Wow.
So Allred was for the '90s the person I was the most envious of. Like I was like he was doing everything right and I was fucking everything up. That's all I could see when. And then the minute I got to Marvel, like the first person I called was Mike Allred to do Marvel team up with me because I needed to make comics with Mike.
Oh man, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah,
Uh
no, I think he's brilliant, and I even in this stage of our lives, like he lives not far from here, so we see each other on and off. And we had a dinner at Mark Russell's house,
wow.
not to be and his the energy him and Laura have for life is something I envy a great deal. There's a goal there that I'm looking to hit. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I felt that when I was watching the interview, and it's funny because the person who conducted the interview, he was like, "Oh, Mike's friends with Brian, and maybe because I told him about like how much I loved your Daredevil run, and he was like, I'm send me something, and I'll have Mike send it over to Brian. So is it cool if I read you what I was going to send to him to you?" If I
Yes.
may. So yeah, one of my favorite books ever. This is the first Omni. The second one, or the reprint, is on the way. But I said, I remember sitting in my room, dark as nails, as the pandemic steamrolled into May, wondering if the world that I knew was coming to an end. It had felt like everything I loved was slipping away from me. I couldn't go to parties or even hang out with my friends in any capacity or manner, and I was upset at the world for stealing everything that I thought rightfully belonged to me. As a rambunctious college student who was living off in a closed bubble, I didn't do myself any favors for the time inside, and for the most part, I acted like an incredibly entitled brat, a personality trait that I've been building up during my last 2 years in high school,
Wow.
with one family friend even telling me that my ego was bigger than the Empire State Building. Had no awareness, no understanding of the greater world around me. And after a heated conversation that I had with a family member, I decided to blow my cool off by opening up my iPad's Marvel Unlimited app to see if there was anything on the front page that piqued my interest. The next thing I know, I was endlessly scrolling through the series section until I hit my finger on the 1999 Marvel Knights series of Daredevil, and I opened it up on issue 26, which was for the first part of your story arc, Underboss. I was hooked in from the onset. The drama, the intrigue, the questions, the steel-like bravado of Matt Murdock. I had no idea if I would ever recover from the politics of Hell's Kitchen and the media coverage of him revealing him as New York City's Daredevil, a lawyer being used by the own system that he used people to protect with. I found it absolutely brilliant in its mechanisms, weaving, and artistic craft. A run that could have only been possible with the harmonic symphonies of Bendis, Maleev, Mack, Dodson, and Hollingsworth all playing together in tandem. But what truly stunned me was the 34th issue that featured a heart-wrenching conversation between Matt and his best friend and lawyer partner, Foggy Nelson. Never before, in the 13 years that I had been reading comics since I was a kid, had these spread pages spoke to me in my heart in a way that others hadn't before. Matt had started a cycle of pain since he had put on the costume and decided to defend the streets of New York City as Daredevil, the same cycle of pain he kept placing in himself, his friends, and his allies. And it made me realize, when was I going to stop? What was I going to stop continuing to push my family out? And would I continue trying to hammer out these false narratives that I was truly on top of the world, only to trounce everyone else beneath my feet because I'd strayed too far? And at that point in my life, I found myself, a piece of myself, in Matt Murdock, seemingly betrayed by the world, only to find out that he was responsible for the consequences of his actions. The line, "What do you call a person who can't learn from a mistake?" wounded me in the best way possible. My only wish is that I could personally tell Brian Michael Bendis one day that he saved my life with this beautiful comic run.
Wow, that's really sweet. Tell him I hear him loud and clear, and it's like I talked to some of my friends who are writers about this too, and our instinct is to immediately tell you what work made us feel that way, and not to like move but all to describe to you, I understand this feeling that you're trying to express to me because I have felt it the same. Walt Simonson did that to me, right? Like there are authors that made me feel that way. So thank you, because that the whole purpose, the whole point of this conversation was trying to describe to you that is what that's the goal, and when you hit it, it's just about the most magical thing in the world. And anyone who wants to make comics or tell stories or be a musician or filmmaker, whatever the pull is that's pulling you, I hope that people go for it so they can maybe feel this one day. It's quite something.
Yeah,
And it's also amazing to be like those things in Daredevil, like I'm writing about, like I'm really pissed off about them. Like I'm like really like that. I'm really asking questions I don't have answers for. So for someone else to also say, yeah, me too, is kind of great. It's kind of like human connection with someone I'll never meet.
yeah,
That's kind
no,
of
because this run was something like, I told you, I guess in the long elongated text, like I had no idea if I was ever going to get to a spot in my life where I felt confident in any of my abilities again. And just sort of to see Matt sort of go through that with his identity being outed and a lot of his friends also questioning why on earth he was still doing the things that he did, and being a superhero, just made me question, like, well, I know that somebody else is going through it, even if it's from a fictional character. There was somebody that I could relate to, in that moment, and the tone that you brought. And every single time I look at an Alex Maleev drawn page, I'm like, I'm
yeah.
sucked into that world. And I have never felt, I think, more emotionally attached to any comic, I think, up at that point, until I read, I need this Daredevil run on my shelf now at some point. So
Wow.
I would like to thank you
Well,
again
thank you.
for saving my life, because I had no idea if if I was ever going to be able to get to a spot again. But because I read your run, I was like, I think I can get better. So thank you, Brian.
That is lovely. Thank you. Heard you loud and clear. And also just like, for me, like me and David Mack became friends just endlessly talking about Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Right.
And then we got to do Daredevil together. And
Hmm.
then like
Hmm.
it was this incredible experience. So for this to be the results is absolutely lovely.
I'd like to thank you so much, Brian, for this conversation. I hope to get to talk to you at some point again. This was
Yeah,
lovely.
we let's make this to be continued for sure. And I'm certainly not meaning to cut it short, but you certainly brought it to an emotional high point, and I do gotta go. So let's end it there, and we'll pick it up another time.
Thank you so much, Brian. Have a wonderful one.
You too. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for the time.